In this video, we're going to tell you about the full story of Shrinking Ray, right from his origins up to his final arc and everything in between. There are huge spoilers ahead. You have been warned. Who is Shrinking Ray? The first and most important thing you need to know about Shrinking Ray, if you've only seen Invincible's animated adaptation, is that, well, he doesn't exist. Or not exactly. That's because the creators of the show decided to gender swap Shrinking Ray, who's a male character in the original comic book series, with, well, Shrinking Ray, a female superhero with the exact same powers whose name is spelled with an R-A-E instead of an R-A-Y. Now, not to get ahead of ourselves, but you're gonna find that the animated version of Shrinking Ray has, let's just say, more time in the spotlight compared to her original comic book counterpart. However, one thing that the animated series version of this size-changing superhero doesn't have is a nicely fleshed out origin story that you can only find in the Image comic rendition of the character. Having said that, Shrinking Ray's entire origin is still relatively shrouded in mystery. In fact, we don't even know his full name. What we do know is that he didn't do a whole lot to hide his civilian alter ego, considering that his real name is, well, Ray. Aside from that, Shrinking Ray's in-universe biography, courtesy of an investigative documentary-style TV program called Unmasked, served as the world's primary source for how the superhero started his career. Now, this piece of information can be found in the real world, I mean our world, within the pages of the official handbook of the Invincible Universe issue 2, and according to that, Ray used to be an employee of a biotech company called Microorganics Limited, located in Bethesda, Maryland. Much like your classic Silver Age superhero origin stories like that of DC Comics' The Flash or Marvel's Spider-Man, Shrinking Ray's origins can be traced back to a lab accident. In this case, there was an explosion that occurred within the confines of Microorganics Limited nanotech division. It resulted in the deaths of several employees. Ray was not one of these casualties. Now, there is some debate whether this was the exact cataclysm that ultimately gave Shrinking Ray his powers. In fact, Shrinking Ray himself remained silent about this, neither confirming or denying it. But based on the reports that were found, we can tell that 1. Ray's body was not found at the site of the accident, and 2. The superhero named Shrinking Ray made himself known to the world shortly after that. So we think it's safe to say that it's valid that this is truly where Shrinking Ray's story begins. Shrinking Ray starts his career. Shrinking Ray would make a name for himself in the superhero business when he managed to rescue a government official, the lieutenant governor of Vermont, from an assassination attempt. This would-be hitman, like Shrinking Ray himself, was the kind of villain who couldn't be seen with the naked eye. That is to say, that they were literally microscopic. And in their attempt to kill Vermont's lieutenant governor, the assassin entered the G-Men's brain, where they and Shrinking Ray had a fight to the death that saw superhero triumphant, and Vermont, well, still having a lieutenant governor. He did all this as an independent operator too. No junior superhero teams or affiliations just yet. Those come a bit later, which probably explains why Shrinking Ray spent most of his time as an independent superhero, mostly overshadowed by other more popular crime fighters in the Invincible universe. Simply put, Bro was as low-key as they come, which is perfectly on brand for a guy who can shrink to the size of a neutron. Still, Shrinking Ray never failed to put in the work, and he eventually achieved a degree of popularity as time went by, especially from the victories he achieved over supervillains like Mindworm and Killipede. Hell, Shrinking Ray even got himself his own arch nemesis in the form of the Legion of Miniature Assassins. So it was only a matter of time before the big leagues came a-calling for this little superhero. Shrinking Ray's huge promotion. Now, the first time we actually see Shrinking Ray in the comics is pretty early on. He makes his first appearance within the pages of Invincible issue number 9. At this point in the series' story, Earth has just experienced a huge tragedy when its once greatest superhero Omni-Man revealed himself to actually be an alien conqueror from a race called the Viltrumites, but not before massacring each and every member of the planet's premier superhero team, the Guardians of the Globe. This whole mess left a gaping hole in the superhero community, so the Global Defense Agency, the government-sanctioned organization that handles the Guardians of the Globe, led by Cecil Stedman, decided to rebuild the team with an all-new roster. First, they drafted Robot, the popular mechanized superhero from the Superstar Junior superhero outfit called the Teen Team, to serve as the all-new Guardians of the Globe's leader. Robot, in turn, held auditions to find the most suitable members of this rebooted team, and first, we see Shrinking Ray as one of the hopefuls trying to claim a spot in the tryouts. Ultimately, he passed the test and became part of the new Guardians of the Globe, along with other members like Monster Girl, Rexplode, Duplicate, Kate and Black Samson. Now, this is the point in Invincible's whole story, gender swap aside, that the animated series more or less diverges from the comic books. The next time we see Shrinking Ray is as a full-fledged guardian of the globe, as he contributed to the fight against a race of alien invaders called the Flaxans in their second attempt to take over Earth. But here's the thing, when looking at the larger picture, the new Guardians of the Globe roster was lacking to say the least. So after a few missions that ended with the team either getting their butts handed to them or at best gaining costly victories over their enemies, the Global Defense Agency decided to improve their performance by adding another hero to the roster, Bulletproof. We'd see Shrinking Ray during Bulletproof's induction to the team, and just as before, the size-changing superhero served more as a background character during this particular appearance. Now, Shrinking Ray would remain very much as a minor character, but at least he gets a speaking part the next time we see him, which is within the pages of Invincible issue number 16. Here, we see Shrinking Ray and the rest of the Guardians of the Globe fending off another alien invasion, which ends with another questionable W for the team when the extraterrestrials started retreating for reasons unknown to any of them. However, Shrinking Ray's next appearance is another step down for the character, as we barely see him when he and the rest of the Guardians of the Globe arrive inside Mob Boss's Machine Head's office to fight the supervillain and his band of super thugs. And in case you were wondering, yeah, that mission did not go well, as a few members of the team like Bulletproof and Black Samson got a solid butt whooping from the intergalactic gladiator known as Battle Beast. On the bright side, it would seem Shrinking Ray was able to come out of this ordeal unscathed. Hey, having the ability to turn into a size of a peanut has its perks, I guess. Nothing changes in the next outing, as we see him serving as a background character yet again when he and the Guardians of the Globe arrive in the aftermath of Mark Grayson and the Mahler twins brawl. Their universe at large would keep its gears grinding, and we get to see Shrinking Ray next during a massive campaign against a planetary threat known as Omnipotus, where he, the Guardians of the Globe, and the rest of Earth's superheroes end up winning against the supervillain. But hey, at least we get some much needed character development for Shrinking Ray in the 31st issue of the series. In this particular story, a telepathic supervillain who calls himself Mind Master has put nearly all of the Guardians of the Globe under his spell. That is, except for Shrinking Ray, who is able to avoid Mind Master's control when he, well, shrank. And at this point, the size-changing superhero was ready to prove himself. Shrinking Ray was just about to cook Mind Master with some good old-fashioned fisticuffs when Invincible absolutely stole his thunder and dropped a rock on the supervillain's head. This made Shrinking Ray absolutely livid, and we get a glimpse at the man's insecurities and how hard he's trying to prove that he's an A-list superhero. Hell, he even gave Invincible the stink eye after that whole bout with Mind Master. So you can see that Kurtman and co might not exactly put too much attention to this character, but maybe that's all intentional. Maybe they're just trying to drive the point home that this was a guy who was just waiting for the right moment to shine, but almost always falling short. The end of Shrinking Ray. And so we've come to the last chapter of Shrinking Ray's saga. Now, for a bit of context, you have to know that the Guardians of the Globe have been split into two teams at this point in the story. On one hand, we have the so-called heavy hitters of the group, such as Black Samson, Monster Girl, the Immortal, Robot, and Bulletproof. They, together with Invincible, Adam Eve, and Shapesmith, have been tasked to preempt an incoming Martian invasion that took them on a mission away from Earth. Meanwhile, the remaining Guardians, mainly Rexplode, Duplicate, and Shrinking Ray, were assigned to sit tight at HQ while the big boys played around in space. Now, at this point, Shrinking Ray has become well aware that he's being treated like a second-rate superhero, with getting benched and all. Little did he know that this would perhaps be the most eventful but fatal chapter in his life. Because not long after the quote-unquote A-team hopped on their spaceship, Shrinking Ray, Rexplode, and Duplicate got a distress call from the US missile silo in Andersontown, Wyoming, as a reptile-themed supervillain group calling itself the Lizard League has taken over the facility. Being a true blue superhero himself and eager to prove their worth as a bona fide Guardians of the Globe, you can bet that Shrinking Ray and his companions went straight to that military base in Wyoming to do some classic superheroing. We even get to see Shrinking Ray utilize his powers in more clandestine ways, as he shrank himself inside the Lizard League guarded military base control room to open the blast doors and allow Rexplode and Duplicate to get to work fighting these serpent criminals. But we also get proof that the Global Defense Agency's decision to put these three heroes on the bench was not misplaced, because we soon find out Rex, Kate, and Ray got absolutely cooked in this duel. For one, Duplicate seemingly died during this incident as the Lizard League League's resident bruiser, a meat-headed villain named Komodo Dragon, tore apart each and every copy of this multiplying superhero. As for Rexplode, yeah, he didn't fare any better when the group's leader, King Lizard, put a bullet in his head. But of the three, Shrinking Ray was the one who got it the worst, because remember that meathead we just mentioned? Yeah, about that, Komodo Dragon literally ate Shrinking Ray. And that was it. That's all she wrote. Duplicate was revealed to be alive somewhere down the line, and Rex ultimately survived taking a bullet to the head. But Shrinking Ray, he was just gone. Now there is some silver lining here. In issue 126 of the series, Mark Grayson found himself in an alternate dimension set around the beginning of the series when he first discovered his powers. In this world, Mark used his knowledge of the future to prevent the tragedies that would eventually befall his fellow superheroes. One such measure that he took to avoid these events was to defeat the Lizard League together with the entire Guardians of the Globe before they could even hit Anderson Town, which ultimately prevented Shrinking Ray's death in this reality. And in one of those scenes from this issue, we get to see the little guy continuing to chug along, buckling down and doing his superhero work, even if, like always, it's as a background character. But hey, at least he doesn't become a literal snack in this world, and I suppose you have to take the little victories as they come.